In a remote desert village, there lived a beautiful girl named Ashanila. With her striking Arabic features and dark skin, she was a vision of grace and ambition. Orphaned at a young age, she was forced to live with her toxic aunt, Amara, and her two cousins, Esme and Tara. Despite the harshness of her surroundings, Ashanila held on to a dream: to escape the confines of her desert village and create a life filled with hope and abundance. One fateful night, as she lay in her humble hut, Ashanila was visited by a vivid dream. In it, she saw a magnificent pit filled with running water, surrounded by lush greenery. The sight filled her with an overwhelming sense of possibility. Upon waking, Ashanila could hardly contain her excitement. "It's true, I know it's true and possible," she shouted, her voice echoing through the stillness of the night. Her aunt and cousins stirred from their sleep, staring at her with disdain. Shut up, Ashanila!" Amara's cruel voice cut through the air, but this time, Ashanila's spirit was unyielding. In a burst of joy, she danced into the heart of the village, grabbing a drum and beating it with fervor. "It's true and possible. The pit with running water and green everywhere," she proclaimed, her voice ringing with conviction. The villagers, initially shocked, began to approach her one by one, drawn in by her infectious energy. Soon she found herself surrounded by curious faces, all wondering what had ignited this fire within her. The atmosphere shifted as the village leader, Zuka, made his way through the crowd, his harsh face set in a scowl. "I told you, Amara, this girl was not supposed to live, and I thought you had done well raising her," he said, his voice dripping with disdain. Amara knelt before him, her head bowed in submission. Zuka continued, "Yes, you see how disrespectful she is. No woman in this village raises her voice as she did today. As for you, girl, this should be your last warning. We didn't do it 20 years ago, but we will have one last chance to rid ourselves of you. Be careful." With that, he turned and left, leaving Ashanila trembling with fear and determination. 2 weeks passed, and traders visited the village. One man, captivated by Ashanila's beauty, began to follow her. When she reached her hut, she quickly hid. Amara, ever the opportunist, spotted the trader and called out, "Young man, what are you looking for?" "I saw the beautiful flower and followed her," he replied shyly. "I would like to ask for her hand in marriage." Amara burst into laughter. "That cursed girl you call a flower? She is the reason her parents died," she cried, weaving a tale of tragedy that sent the trader reeling.
Inside her hut, Ashanila wept, feeling the weight of her family's past and the burden of her existence. Outside, Amara and the village elders were busy arranging a marriage for one of her daughters, whispering about the curse that Ashanila supposedly brought upon them. One day, while exploring the village tunnel where treasures and food were hidden, Ashanila encountered a young man named Mustafa. He was intrigued by her spirit and offered to help her find water underground. Together, they worked tirelessly, and Ashanila's determination paid off when she finally discovered the source of running water. Overjoyed, she danced and called for Mustafa. But when she entered the tunnel, she found it empty. "Mustafa!" she cried, her heart sinking as she realized he was gone. Days turned into weeks as she searched for him, but he was nowhere to be found. Meanwhile, the pit filled with water, transforming the village into a lush paradise. The villagers, led by Zuka, convened to discuss Ashanila's fate. "She is dead. The gods have killed her for us and blessed us abundantly," Zuka declared, unaware of Ashanila's plight. One morning, the villagers discovered Ashanila sleeping in the tunnel. They dragged her to the trading market, where Zuka confronted her, demanding to know where their treasures were. "Mustafa," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Zuka raised his sword, ready to strike. "She is a curse, and if we don't kill her today, all this will dry out." Just then, a figure appeared on a camel, adorned in royal attire. It was Mustafa, flanked by guards. "Stop!" he commanded, dismounting and rushing to Ashanila's side. "Anyone who dares to touch her will be killed." With a fierce gaze, he addressed the villagers. "She worked tirelessly for the pit that brings you abundance. You call this a blessing, but I see her hardship, her dedication, and her spirit. Give her food," Mustafa commanded Zuka, who stood frozen in shock. As Ashanila ate, her strength returned, and she began to see clearly once more. Mustafa and Ashanila rode side by side on a camel, the villagers following them in awe. Mustafa, you betrayed me, Ashanila said softly, her heart heavy with confusion. Not as it seems, he replied with a smile. I saw an opportunity to return to the castle and become sultan. With the treasures I found, I could turn those who sought to harm me against their own people, ensuring my place on the throne. What happened to them? Ashanila asked, her voice trembling. Punishment, Mustafa replied, his tone serious. What kind of punishment? She pressed, her heart racing. Death, he stated simply, and Ashanila gasped in horror. What will we do with Suka and Amara? Mustafa inquired, his brow furrowed. Forgive them, Ashanila said, surprising even herself. What? Mustafa exclaimed, taken aback by her response. Ashanila laughed softly, a sound filled with both sadness and strength. They are products of their circumstances, just as I am. Forgiveness is the only way to break the cycle of hatred and pain. Mustafa looked at her, admiration shining in his eyes. You truly are remarkable, Ashanila. As they continued their journey, the villagers began to understand the depth of Ashanila's spirit and the power of her dreams. Together, they would forge a new path, one filled with hope, unity, and the promise of a brighter future for their village.